Hey everyone, TimaeuSS here. Welcome to another Girls Frontline 2 video, and today we are going to be taking a look at the global tier list. That's right, the game is officially launching on the 3rd of December, and I'm super excited to bring you guys the global launch tier list because not only are we going to take a look at the current breakdowns, the rankings, but we are actually going to go in-game, alright, and take a look at some of these insane skills and the descriptions and explain the reason why these characters are as good as they are, because sometimes you see a tier list, they just have the rankings and the explanations doesn't make much sense, but that's completely not the case here. We'll go over the list and we'll explain with the skill descriptions why these heroes are so broken. So right off the bat, this tier list is of course done by the wonderful people at Pridewind. They have done an amazing job going through and testing everything from the global closed betas as well as the CN servers looking ahead into the future. So I have a link down below for you guys to check out their website, and you can see right off the bat the only S+ tier hero here is gonna be Suomi, okay? And if you haven't looked at my reroll guide video, check it out because I give you the perfect pairing for Suomi, but she is a master of all, a shielder, healer, buffer, and debuffer, and she does all of them really well. So yes, let's take a look at how she does that in game. That's right, we're gonna go inside and take a look at the skills. Now, if you're interested in the game because you think this art and this design is absolutely gorgeous, the top tier, use the link down below and you can try out the game yourself by using my download link for Girls Frontline 2 either on PC or mobile. So without further ado, let's talk about the skills. Now for the skills, I won't read everything out. It will be somewhat simplified so you can understand what they do. Okay, first skill, of course, basic attack, and yeah, that's it basically. Now, this is where things get a bit crazy. The first skill is going to be a 6-tile radius or range attack, a single target one that deals freeze damage to the enemy. Crit rate for this skill is reduced by 100, but it scales off of defense and does fixed damage, okay? And if there are allies within a certain tile, I believe this is the 6-tile range, you do more stability damage, which is breaking the shield, and that is super important because if this causes the enemy stability to break, then you increase that fixed damage from 50 to 125% scaling off of defense. And you'll see later on, Suomi is going to scale really hard into defense, so this is going to do a huge amount of damage. It's not bad at all, and not to mention the most important part about is the utility in breaking stability, okay? Because you're going to have, let's say, 3 allies with you, so 3 within the 6 tiles, that is 3 plus 4, 7 stability damage, so quite nice. Okay, let's take a look at the active buff second skill. Selects one ally within the 6 tiles and applies a frost barrier. This frost barrier, when destroyed, will apply freeze to the enemy, and the shield is actually quite nice. It's quite thick as well. And also, there's a buff called impact response, and after being attacked, Suomi will gain 10% of maximum HP, so it just makes her a bit more tanky. And all these frost barrier will scale off of Suomi's initial attack, capped at the target's max HP 100%, and restores a 2 stability index, which is quite nice. And for each enemy unit within 5 tiles of the ally that you have selected, you also gain 1 stack of defensive support. And this is where the defensive support stacking defense scaling component is absolutely can go crazy, okay? Because this is 30% at max 4, it's 120%. 120% of defense buff. Crazy, and it lasts for 2 turns. Now looking into ultimate, this breaks the game honestly. Selects an empty tile, okay, and deals fixed damage, so it's basically AoE of 50% defense, so again more defense scaling damage to all enemies, and apply 3 stacks of avalanche, okay? So it's 3 tiles within the 6 tiles, and that avalanche is a freeze debuff, and upon reaching 5 stacks, you do 8 fixed stability damage. And remember, a lot of her skills, they count as freeze debuff, so it's gonna reach that 5 stacks really fast, and then boom, 8 fixed stability damage. She restores 50% of Suomi's max HP, okay? Restores HP equal to 50% of Suomi's max HP, gains 6 points of stability, cleanses 3 debuffs, and cleanses taunt, fear, infection, and stun for all ally units. Crazy. And wait, there's more. Frost barrier, which we talked about, was a shield, and then defense up, even more defense. so insane. And another stack of Wintry Bastion, which is a damage reduction. Okay, reduce damage taken by 30% and maximum 5 stacks, and you consume a stack every time you're attacked for 3 turns. This is honestly so crazy. And not to mention that the Frost Barrier will be increased because you gain an effect of increasing the shield by 30% up to 150 of the target max HP, whereas the previous was capped at 100, right? I mean, just reading the skill, you know essentially she is a 1 unit that it doesn't matter what your remaining 3 units are, you just throw Suomi in and boom, they're done. The rest of you will not die. Okay, and if an ally is at full HP when you're casting this, right? Because remember, there's a huge heal coming from this skill. If the ally is at full HP, then they will gain shelter, which is stability protection and continuous healing. So they even thought about overhealing by giving you a heal over time instead, and this lasts for 3 turns. 10% of max HP for 3 turns, 30% heal. Oh my yeah, and after the skill is used, also turns into frost tiles. Okay, and enemy units now are weak to freeze damage. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. She just does so much, and not to mention there is a passive as well, because at the end of the action she will get, basically this is the skill points, the confectance index, and you'll see the cost of these confectance cost for the skills and the ult in your skills, but you gain 2 points at the end of the action and restores 5% of maximum HP to other allied units within 6 times. She just heals passively. That's just crazy. And if the target is below 50% and you heal more, okay, you go 10%. Now, if they have the shield, which we talked about, then you gain Warding Light, which is increased freeze damage, and upon taking damage, if the frost barrier is not destroyed, then you do a stability damage instead. And when an ally unit is using a basic attack, then boom, here comes Avalanche. Remember, this is a freeze debuff. Okay, so now all of your characters when they're attacking, they essentially apply freeze debuff. Crazy to a random enemy target within 6 tiles. And when an enemy unit within range takes target damage from an ally, prioritize using action support, and you basically will follow up attack, essentially a counter. And also after that, you apply critical damage up to allied units, so 10% damage boost on crit damage, and restores 1 point of stability index within 4 tiles. So you can trigger this thrice. Okay, trigger this thrice, which means you can use action support 3 times per turn, and if the HP is about 80%, then you gain Sleet Drift. So increasing your support fire range by 2, because support fire range when you counterattack, right, it's usually 6, okay, but you gain a buff, so it's 8. I mean, we have just spent almost 6 minutes going over Suomi's skill, and right off the bat, you can already tell what an overloaded kit, and absolutely deserving, okay, absolutely deserving of the S+ tier on the tier list. I mean, just so broken. Holy crap, how is she this broken? And she's available for you to re-roll as well at the beginning. So yes, I mean, there's no other choices. Now, for the other characters, okay, because I do not want to make this video too long, so we'll be very brief about going through, because I think for the S tier there's only 2 characters, right? Tololo as well as Qiongjiu. Now, the reason why some people prefer Tololo, I myself included, is that she is super good in the early to mid game aspect, whereas Qiongjiu is Qiongjiu is much later. Okay, so again, we will just pull this up in the in-game client. They performs very similar roles in the form of DPS, but the usage for these characters are going to be different. Now, taking a look at Toro. So, single target attack, very nice. And the Black Hole Inversion, Hydro damage. Now, she is going to be best paired up with some of these Hydro characters, and a lot of them we get for free. So some of the Hydro characters, if we just go through here, you can see that Sabrina is there and Kofin is there as well. Not a lot in the initial part of the game's launch, but later on we'll get more, okay? So, Black Hole Inversion is a target damage, and this attack ignores cover damage reduction as well, and you gain more of the confectance index. And for her, confectance index is very important because she's a cooldown based character, so the confectance index will use something else. And the second skill, is going to be targeting another enemy, one enemy target, and dealing massive amounts of damage. And if you have a lot more buffs, then increase damage and gain more of these confectance index. And if you get 3 or more buffs, you gain even more. And the reason why we have these confectance index, okay, is here. Okay, here. At the start of the battle, you fill your confectance index to max. And if it's a max, so either at the start of the battle, so trigger this for sure, or later on because your skills generate a lot, you gain 1 instance of extra action. This is so important because she will snowball, right? Because you see all the skills will get her all of these points. So a lot of the times she will just start snowballing because she's going to be taking multiple actions. So during the extra action, not only do you get 20% attack boost, a crit rate boost, phase boost, and piercing for 2 turns, you also gain a random buff for every 2 confection index till the end of the action at the start of each action, which is really crazy. And if an ally unit is dealing hydro damage, then you get even more crit rate and crit damage buff in the form of light spike. This stacks up to 8, so max 40%. Now taking a look at the ultimate, okay, so again, the ultimate is a cooldown skill that generates confectance index, and this is a single target damage that deals hydro damage. And if you have a lot of buffs, they increase the damage dealt and reduce the skill by 3 turns, so you are just gonna constantly keep firing this. And if this kills, you can use confectance index. So a lot of times you use this to pick off an enemy if you're guaranteed to kill, and a lot of times it will trigger extra action, give you all that buff. But to open, what's going to be really fantastic is going to be using obviously Supernova, right? Because Supernova guarantees you to get a ton of these confectance indexes, especially at the start of the turn. For each 2 points of confectance, you gain a random buff. So at the start of battle, because you have pretty much max, you're gonna gain a lot and trigger off of the Supernova index, gain that, and then you will be abusing the extra turn mechanic quite a bit. So this is why for the early to mid game, she's just gonna snowball and get tons and tons of turns, and this is what's gonna make her really good. However, if we take a look at the Qiongjiu, first of all, my goodness, this design is peak design, okay? But she is going to be a sustained damage dealer, a form of indirect DPS through physical as well as burn, okay? Especially for boss battles, she's going to be super good for the late game stuff. So the reason why she is fantastic is because she is, again, this is the basic content, nothing to talk about here, but starting us off with the skill, 8 tiles, range is pretty decent, deals a burn damage, and additionally support boost as well. Okay, so this means that increased damage dealt by action support by 15%, and damage against exposed characters is also increased. And the action support we talked about is a support attack. And if the enemy is killed from this skill, then you get a further additional support boost. So she's not going to be doing a lot of damage during her own turn sometimes, but through the burns and the support attack, she is going to be kicking ass. Now, the other skill, Guide to Victory, is an AoE debuff. Selects one direction, deals AoE burn damage to the first enemy, and applies overburn. So this is really cool because this overburn, okay, allows the unit and our allies to receive fixed damage to 10% of the attack of the unit that applied it, right? So if they're gathered around, let's say the crowded here, you apply overburn and it will spread like wildfire, and it can crit as well. So that's right, if it's already affected by overburn, then this attack is gonna have 100% crit rate, which is crazy. Now the ultimate, 3 stacks of support boost right off the bat, which is crazy, so good. So you can see she has really good synergy with main DPS units, and a max confectance index gains 1 additional stack, increasing the maximum damage up by this turn by 1. So you have tons of debuffs, are probably vulnerable, so enemies take 10% more damage to targets not protected by power, and when provide action support, applies damage to herself, damage up to herself, which is 20% buff, and also to the ally she is supporting, which is so crazy. Okay, so where does the action support really come from? Okay, so we can see that she will gain 1 point of confectance index each time when she deals damage, and when the enemy within range receive targeted damage from an ally. This is where the action support comes from. This is the assist attack. So basically when you're, because a lot of units, they sometimes counterattack, but action support for this guy, support attack for this unit is gonna be in the form of you dealing damage with a separate character, and then she will follow up. Okay, so she'll follow up and she'll do damage and also stability damage as well. And she gains 3 follow-up attacks per turn. That's absolutely crazy, because we know from the previous skills she gains so much support boost, so additional damage from the support attacks, and she will also be able to apply this to the target she is supporting. So really strong. So she has 3 times the capabilities of support attacks per turn, and this deals physical damage like we said, and can after performing the action support apply overburn more, and action support even more. So you can see from the passives as well as the second skill, overburn and action support damage up and support boost is basically the name of the game. She's just gonna out damage sometimes your main DPS as well, or of course your supports, but she's gonna sometimes out damage the final damage output of the main DPS if you have, let's say, 3 of your characters, 3 other characters just attacking, and then she's following up with support attacks for the entirety of those 3 separate attacks. So yes, she is going to be a fantastic S tier unit, not S plus quite yet on the tier list. And in terms of these 2 characters, ideally get both, right? Because they're super strong. But if you take a look at the late game wise, you can see Tololo does fall off a bit, and Qiongjiu is still standing in the S tier, and Suomi of course is uncontested. So if you're playing more for the future, you could potentially save her instead. Okay, now in terms of the rest, oh my goodness, this video is 16 minutes. If you are interested, we will definitely make a follow-up video to this, but basically the intros, some of them are not done yet. Of course, Pride Moon will be updating this as well, so I'll leave a link so you can check them out. The only person we'll go over on the tier list for the last character is gonna be Ildred. Okay, she is unfortunately gonna be a quite dupe heavy character. I mean, her art and her design is really good, but unless you whale, for free to play it's not as good, because you want to get multiple dupes for her. But if you can get multiple dupes, she will be super strong as well. So if you're looking for specific character guides, we can do that as well. So anyhow, let me know your thoughts. TimaeuSS here. Thank you so much guys once again for watching this video. It's been the tier list for the Girls Frontline 2 Global, and I'll see you guys in game as we dive deep into the global release. And goodbye now.